Under the intense glare of Manhattan's skyline, amid the luxury and opulence of one of the world's richest cities, Blake Harrington stood out as the architect of an unshakable empire. The towering glass headquarters of Harrington Industries reflected the afternoon sun, casting long shadows across Fifth Avenue as New York's elite hurried past, unaware of the drama unfolding in the penthouse office above. At 52, Blake had mastered the art of commanding respect despite the wheelchair that had become part of his identity over the past 7 years. The skiing accident that had left him paraplegic had only hardened his already formidable resolve. His salt and pepper hair, always immaculately styled, framed a face that rarely betrayed emotion, except when closing multi-billion-dollar deals. "The fourth quarter projections need to be adjusted," he announced to the room of executives, his voice cutting through the tension like a well-honed blade. "We're not in the business of mediocrity. If Austin can't deliver by next week, find someone who can." The board members nodded in unison, none daring to question his judgment. For Blake, success was not gifted, but conquered through determination and unwavering focus. Vulnerability was a luxury he couldn't afford, especially since the accident. His presence, even in a wheelchair, inspired as much respect as fear among his employees. Only one person in the room seemed unaffected by his intimidating aura. Sitting quietly at the corner of the long mahogany table, taking detailed notes, was Olivia Mitchell, his executive assistant of 3 years. At 35, Olivia possessed a quiet strength that set her apart from the yes-men who populated Blake's world. Raised in a working-class neighborhood in Queens by a single mother who had instilled in her the values of dignity and perseverance, she had fought her way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs. Now, amidst the opulence of Harrington Industries, she refused to be molded by the cutthroat environment surrounding her. As the meeting concluded and executives filed out, Olivia remained, organizing papers with methodical precision. Blake wheeled himself to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the empire he had built. For a fleeting moment, something in his posture changed. A slight slump of the shoulders, a tightening of his jaw, so subtle that anyone else would have missed it. But Olivia noticed. For the first time, she saw him not as the unbreakable titan of industry, but as a man carrying invisible scars behind his armor of steel and billion-dollar deals. The moment passed quickly as Blake turned, his expression once again unreadable. "Cancel my dinner with Senator Phillips, reschedule for next week, and bring me the Westwood acquisition files." "Already done," Olivia replied, placing a folder on his desk, "and I took the liberty of preparing some alternative approaches to the negotiation, considering their recent management changes." Blake raised an eyebrow, the closest he ever came to showing surprise. "Efficient as always, Ms. Mitchell." He opened the folder, scanning her notes with approval. "These are surprisingly insightful." "Just doing my job, Mr. Harrington." As Olivia turned to leave, Blake called after her. "One more thing. The charity gala this weekend, I need you there. The Montgomery Foundation is bringing potential investors I want to meet." "Of course," she responded professionally, though inwardly she cringed at the thought of another weekend sacrificed to work. But she needed this job, needed it more than ever now. Later that evening, as the office emptied and the city lights began to twinkle against the darkening sky, Olivia sat at her desk, her composure finally cracking as she stared at the medical bills spread before her. Her mother's condition was deteriorating rapidly, requiring specialized care that insurance wouldn't cover. The treatments were experimental, expensive, and the only hope for extending her life. The phone rang, interrupting her calculations. It was the hospital. With each word from the doctor, her heart sank further. Without immediate intervention, her mother would have only months left. The new treatment protocol would cost upwards of $750,000, money she didn't have and couldn't hope to raise through conventional means. "We understand this is a difficult situation, Ms. Mitchell," the doctor said gently. "Take some time to consider your options." Options, as if she had any. Her tiny apartment in Astoria felt especially empty that night. Olivia sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold beside her laptop as she researched loans, grants, anything that might help. Nothing came close to the amount she needed. The next morning, Blake noticed the dark circles under Olivia's eyes but said nothing. As the day progressed, he found himself observing her more closely, the way she maintained her professional demeanor despite clear exhaustion, how she anticipated his needs before he expressed them, her quiet resilience in the face of his demanding nature. That evening, as Olivia prepared to leave, Blake called her into his office. The city was bathed in the golden light of sunset, casting long shadows across his minimalist space. "You seem distracted today, Miss Mitchell. I apologize if my performance has been lacking, Mr. Harrington. It won't happen again." Blake studied her for a moment. "That's not what I said." He wheeled himself away from his desk, approaching the window. "I value directness, as you know. So tell me, what's troubling you?" The unexpected inquiry caught her off guard. In 3 years, he had never expressed interest in her personal life. Olivia hesitated, weighing her options. "Family health issues," she finally admitted. "Nothing that will interfere with my work." Blake nodded, his expression unreadable. "I see." After a pause, he added, "If you need resources, the company has certain programs for employees in difficult situations. Thank you, but I'll manage." Olivia's pride wouldn't allow her to accept charity, especially from a man who viewed compassion as weakness. After she left, Blake remained by the window, watching as the city transformed into a constellation of lights. For reasons he couldn't articulate, their brief exchange had disturbed something deep within him, a recognition perhaps of a strength different from his own, a strength born not of power or wealth, but of quiet dignity in the face of adversity. The following days brought increased pressure as the Westwood acquisition approached its critical phase. Blake drove his team relentlessly, accepting nothing short of perfection. Only Olivia seemed capable of weathering his intensity without breaking. On Friday afternoon, as a thunderstorm rolled across Manhattan, Blake found himself alone with Olivia in the conference room, reviewing final strategies for Monday's negotiation. Lightning flashed, momentarily illuminating her face as she explained a potential legal complication she had identified. "No one else caught this," Blake remarked, genuinely impressed. "Sometimes a fresh perspective helps," she replied, her voice betraying fatigue despite her best efforts. Another flash of lightning, followed by a thunderclap that shook the windows. And in that moment, something shifted between them, an acknowledgement of mutual respect that had been building slowly over years of working side by side. As Olivia gathered her things to leave, Blake made a decision that would alter both their lives irrevocably. He opened his laptop and began typing an email, his fingers hesitating only briefly before hitting send. At home, exhausted and drenched from the rain, Olivia checked her phone one last time before bed. Among the usual work notifications was a message from Blake, not sent through the company system, but to her personal email. The subject line read simply, "A proposition." With trembling fingers, she opened it, unprepared for the words that appeared. On her screen, a sum of $1 million in exchange for a single night together. The message was direct, businesslike, yet undeniably intimate. Olivia stared at the screen in disbelief, her mind racing. The man who had always embodied cold logic and ruthless ambition had just crossed a line she never imagined he would approach. And now, faced with her mother's deteriorating health and mounting medical bills, she found herself considering an offer that went against everything she believed in. Dawn broke over the East River, casting a pale golden light across Olivia's small apartment. She hadn't slept. Blake's email remained open on her laptop screen, the words searing themselves into her consciousness. $1 million, a single night. The audacity of the proposition was matched only by its temptation. Olivia's phone rang, jolting her from her thoughts. It was Rachel, her closest friend since college days. "I'm coming over," Rachel announced before Olivia could even speak. "You sound terrible and I've got bagels." 30 minutes later, they sat at Olivia's tiny kitchen table, steam rising from coffee mugs between them. Rachel, vibrant and direct as always with her curly red hair and piercing green eyes, listened intently as Olivia recounted Blake's unexpected proposal. "He can't be serious," Rachel finally said, her expression a mixture of disbelief and indignation. "After everything you've done for his company, this is how he values you, as something to be bought." "I think that's exactly how he sees the world," Olivia replied quietly. "Everything has a price tag. Everyone can be acquired with the right offer." She paused, running her finger along the rim of her mug. "The thing is, he's not entirely wrong. Right now, that money would save my mother's life." Rachel's eyes softened with concern. "Liv, you have to protect your integrity. Don't let anyone, especially not some billionaire who thinks he owns the world, buy what you fought so hard to preserve." Olivia nodded, though doubt clouded her features. "But what are my alternatives? I've tried everything. The banks won't approve a loan of that size without collateral I don't have. The insurance company keeps rejecting the treatment as experimental. Even if I sold everything I own, it wouldn't come close to what's needed." The weight of her reality hung heavy between them. Her mother, once vibrant and full of life, was now confined to a hospital bed, growing weaker by the day. The experimental treatment was her only hope, a chance to not just extend her life, but potentially restore her quality of life. "What would she want you to do?" Rachel asked gently. "She'd tell me to keep my dignity at all costs," Olivia admitted. "But she's always been the one to sacrifice everything for me. Maybe it's my turn now." After Rachel left, Olivia spent the day in a haze, going through the motions of weekend chores while her mind churned with impossible choices. By evening, she found herself at the hospital, sitting beside her mother's bed, holding a frail hand that had once been strong enough to carry all of life's burdens. "You're worried about something," her mother observed, her voice weak but her eyes still sharp with intelligence. "Tell me." Olivia forced a smile. "Just work stress, nothing important." "I've known you your entire life, Olivia Jean Mitchell. Don't insult me by lying now." The gentle rebuke brought tears to Olivia's eyes. "I'm trying to find a way to pay for your treatment. The new protocol Dr. Stevens mentioned." Her mother's expression softened with understanding. "Oh, my sweet girl, you've already done more than enough. Sometimes we have to accept the hand we're dealt." "No," Olivia said firmly. "I'm not giving up. There's an opportunity that could provide the money we need." "What kind of opportunity makes you look this tormented?" When Olivia didn't immediately answer, her mother squeezed her hand with surprising strength. "Whatever it is, if it costs you your self-respect, it's too expensive. No life, not even mine, is worth that price." Later that night, as Olivia walked through the quiet hospital corridors, her phone buzzed with a text from Blake. "I await your answer. The offer stands until Monday morning." Sunday passed in a blur of anxiety and indecision. Olivia visited 3 banks, each rejecting her loan application. She called distant relatives, explored crowdfunding options, even considered selling her mother's house upstate, though it would take weeks to process and yield far less than needed. By sunset, she found herself walking through Central Park, watching families enjoy the last hours of their weekend, children running and laughing without the burden of impossible choices. She envied their simplicity, their freedom. Her wandering led her to the edge of the park that bordered the luxury condominiums where New York's elite resided. Above the tree line, she could see the penthouse of Blake's building, its windows reflecting the setting sun like flames. Was he up there now, confidently awaiting her surrender? Did he ever doubt himself? Or was certainty the privilege of the wealthy? Monday morning arrived with merciless promptness. As Olivia entered the towering glass headquarters of Harrington Industries, her decision had been made, though it sat like lead in her stomach. Blake was already in his office when she arrived, reviewing documents with the focused intensity that had built his empire. He acknowledged her with a nod, proceeding with their normal morning routine, as if he hadn't proposed something that had upended her entire world. Throughout the day, their interactions remained strictly professional. The Westwood acquisition moved forward, contracts were reviewed, calls were made. Only the occasional lingering glance from Blake suggested anything unusual between them. As evening approached and the office emptied, Olivia finally entered his office, closing the door behind her. Blake looked up from his computer, his expression unreadable. "I've made my decision," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I accept your offer, but with conditions." A slight tightening around his eyes was the only indication of his surprise. "I'm listening." "This will be a one-time arrangement. No repeated propositions, no expectations beyond what's explicitly agreed upon. No personal or professional repercussions regardless of what happens, and the money will be transferred to my account beforehand." Blake studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Acceptable terms. When?" "This Friday. I'll need to make arrangements for my mother's care." She maintained eye contact, refusing to show weakness. "And to be clear, this is a transaction, nothing more." "Of course," he replied coolly. "I've never confused business with sentiment." As Olivia turned to leave, Blake called after her. "The charity gala this weekend, you're still attending?" She paused at the door. "Yes, as your executive assistant, as planned." "Good. I've had additional tickets sent to your address. Bring your friend. Rachel, isn't it? Might make the evening more tolerable for you." The unexpected consideration caught her off guard. "Thank you," she said carefully. "That's thoughtful." Blake turned back to his computer, dismissing her with the same casual authority he always wielded. "Just practical. Your comfort ensures discretion." The next few days passed in a strange limbo. At work, nothing appeared to have changed. Blake remained demanding and distant, Olivia efficient and professional. But beneath the surface, an undercurrent of tension flowed between them, electric and unsettling. On Wednesday, Olivia received confirmation of a bank transfer, $1 million as promised. She immediately arranged for her mother's treatment to begin the following week. The relief of securing this chance at her mother's recovery was tempered by the weight of how she had obtained it. That evening, she confided in Rachel over dinner at her apartment. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Rachel asked, concern evident in her voice. "No," Olivia admitted, "but I'm sure about giving my mother a fighting chance." Rachel reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "Then I'll support you. And I'll be right beside you at that gala, giving that arrogant bastard my best death glare all night." The comment elicited a genuine laugh from Olivia, the first in what felt like ages. "He actually suggested I bring you, said it might make the evening more tolerable for me." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Did he now? Perhaps there's a human being somewhere beneath all those designer suits and billion-dollar deals after all." "I doubt it," Olivia replied, though she couldn't help but recall that moment in his office when she'd glimpsed something vulnerable in his usually impenetrable facade. Men like Blake Harrington don't achieve what he has by being human. They win by being calculating, seeing people as assets or liabilities. "And which are you?" Rachel asked softly. Olivia looked down at her hands. "I'm not sure anymore." Friday arrived with unavoidable finality. Olivia spent the morning at the hospital with her mother, watching as the doctors explained the new treatment protocol that would begin on Monday. The hope in her mother's eyes made everything worth it, or so Olivia told herself. At work, she functioned on autopilot, her mind elsewhere as she completed tasks with mechanical efficiency. Blake was absent most of the day, attending external meetings. When he returned late afternoon, their interaction was limited to brief, necessary exchanges about the upcoming week's schedule. As the office emptied for the weekend, Olivia remained at her desk, postponing the inevitable. At 7 o'clock, her phone buzzed with a text message. "The car will collect you at 9. Address already programmed." She gathered her things and left without saying goodbye, feeling strangely like she was walking toward an execution of her own choosing. In her apartment, she opened her closet and removed the dress she had chosen, elegant but not overly revealing, her armor of black silk against whatever the night might bring. As she applied her makeup with trembling hands, Olivia caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back at her seemed both familiar and foreign. What would her younger self think of the choice she had made? Would her mother ever forgive her if she knew the truth? At precisely 9 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside her building. The driver, discreet and professional, opened the door without comment. As the vehicle glided through the Friday night traffic toward the Upper East Side, Olivia closed her eyes, steeling herself for what awaited her at the end of this journey. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of one of Manhattan's most exclusive residential buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city skyline, a glittering tapestry of lights against the night sky. The interior was a study in understated luxury, minimalist furniture in shades of grey and black, accented by strategic splashes of color from original artwork that Olivia recognized as pieces worth millions. Blake sat in his wheelchair near the windows, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, his back to the door as she entered. For a moment he didn't turn, allowing Olivia to collect herself in the silence. "Would you like a drink?" he finally asked, wheeling around to face her. Olivia stood tall, her chin raised slightly in defiance of her own nervousness. "No, thank you." Blake studied her with analytical precision, as if cataloguing every detail of her appearance. "You look beautiful," he said, the compliment delivered with the same detached tone he might use to appraise a painting. "Let's not pretend this is something it isn't," Olivia replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "We had an agreement." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Always direct. It's one of the qualities I've come to appreciate about you." He placed his glass on a nearby table. "However, I find that even the most transactional relationships benefit from certain courtesies." He gestured toward the dining area, where Olivia was surprised to see a table set for dinner. "I thought we might eat first, unless you're eager to proceed directly to the terms of our arrangement." The unexpected consideration caught her off guard. She had anticipated many scenarios for this evening, but not this veneer of civility. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Dinner would be fine. The meal was exquisite, prepared by a private chef who disappeared discreetly after serving each course. Blake proved to be an engaging host, steering the conversation toward art, literature, and global affairs rather than business or personal matters. It was a side of him Olivia had glimpsed only rarely during client dinners, never directed at her. "You're surprised," he observed, as the dessert plates were cleared away. "I didn't expect—" Olivia paused, searching for the right words. "This level of consideration. What did you expect? That I would behave like some barbaric conqueror? That's not how I conduct any aspect of my life, Miss Mitchell." "Olivia," she corrected him automatically. "Under the circumstances, I think formality is somewhat absurd." Blake raised an eyebrow, then inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Olivia, then." He wheeled himself back slightly from the table. "And you may call me Blake, for tonight at least." An uncomfortable silence settled between them. Olivia found herself studying him more closely than she had dared before. In the soft lighting of his home, away from the corporate environment, he seemed different, still commanding but with subtle cracks in his usually impenetrable facade. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "You could have anyone. Women far more beautiful, far less complicated." Blake considered her question with surprising seriousness. "Beauty is commonplace among the circles I move in. Integrity, intelligence, and genuine strength of character are far rarer commodities." He took a sip of his wine. "You've never flinched from speaking truth to power, my power specifically. Do you realize how unusual that is?" "I was just doing my job," Olivia replied, uncomfortable with his analysis. "No. Your job was to accommodate my demands, not challenge them when you felt they were misguided." His eyes held hers with unsettling intensity. "You've never been afraid of me. Even now, when most would be intimidated by the situation, you maintain your dignity. Is that what attracts you? The prospect of breaking something that hasn't been broken yet?" The question hung between them, sharp as a blade. For a moment, something like genuine emotion flickered across Blake's face. Perhaps anger, perhaps respect, or something far more complex. "I've never needed to break people to feel powerful, Olivia. Only the truly weak require that kind of validation. Before she could respond, he wheeled himself toward the living area, indicating she should follow. They moved to the expansive terrace, where the night air was cool and fragrant with the scent of flowers from carefully arranged planters. The city spread before them, a vast constellation of lights and possibilities. "You know," Blake said after a long silence, "I often come out here at night and look at this view. All these lives, all these stories playing out simultaneously. From up here, the patterns become visible, the flow of traffic, the rhythms of the city. Patterns are what I understand best." "And people? Do you understand them as well as you understand patterns?" "People are patterns," he replied. "More complex, certainly, but ultimately predictable once you identify their core motivations." Olivia turned to face him directly. "And what do you think is my core motivation?" "Safety," he answered without hesitation. "Not for yourself. You take remarkable risks with your own well-being. But for those you love, your mother specifically." The accuracy of his assessment was unnerving. "You've been investigating me. I make it a point to know everything about the people closest to me. Professional habit." Blake's expression softened slightly. "Your devotion to her is admirable. Few would go to the lengths you have." "Including this?" Olivia asked bitterly. "Especially this." He wheeled closer to her. "Which brings us to the question of the evening. Are you certain you want to proceed?" "The money is already yours. I don't renege on financial commitments." The unexpected offer of release caught Olivia completely off guard. She searched his face for signs of manipulation, but found only calm inquiry. "Why would you do that? Pay, without expecting anything in return?" Blake's smile was tinged with something close to sadness, considerate recognition of something I rarely encounter, a person who cannot be easily categorized or dismissed. For a moment, Olivia was tempted to accept his offer, to walk away with both the money and her dignity intact, but something held her back. Pride, perhaps, or a strange sense that accepting such charity from him would create a different kind of obligation, one even more complex than their current arrangement. "No," she said firmly, "I don't want your pity. We had an agreement. I'll honor my end of it." Blake studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "As you wish." He gestured toward the glass doors leading back inside. "Shall we?" The bedroom, like the rest of the penthouse, was a masterpiece of understated luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered the same spectacular view, though heavy automated curtains could provide privacy at the touch of a button. The bed was enormous, dressed in what Olivia was certain were the finest linens money could buy. As Blake closed the door behind them, Olivia felt a surge of panic, quickly suppressed. She had made her choice. She would see it through with the same determination that had carried her through every other challenge in her life. "May I help you with your dress?" Blake asked, his voice neutral. "I can manage," she replied, moving toward an adjoining bathroom. "I'll just need a moment." Inside the elegant marble bathroom, Olivia stared at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger, beautiful in her designer dress, makeup perfect, not a hair out of place. Yet beneath that polished exterior was someone making a choice she never imagined herself making. For her mother, she reminded herself, for a chance at more years together. When she emerged, Blake had transferred himself from his wheelchair to the bed, propped against pillows. He had removed his jacket and tie, but otherwise remained clothed. "You're trembling," he observed. "I'm fine," Olivia lied, moving toward the bed with determined steps. Blake reached out, catching her wrist gently. "Sit beside me for a moment." Hesitantly, she complied. This close, she could smell his cologne, subtle and expensive like everything else about him. She was suddenly intensely aware of how little she actually knew about this man, despite working closely with him for years. "Have you ever wondered about my accident?" he asked unexpectedly. Olivia blinked, startled by the change in direction. "Sometimes. It's not something you discuss. 7 years ago, I was arguably at the height of my personal and professional power. Skiing in Aspen, showing off, to be honest. I took a trail beyond my capabilities because I couldn't stand the thought of admitting limitation." His voice remained steady, but his eyes grew distant with memory. One moment of hubris and everything changed. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. I'm sorry, Olivia said softly, unsure why he was sharing this now. Don't be, it's not a plea for sympathy. Blake's eyes refocused on her face. My point is that before the accident, I believed absolute control was possible. Afterward, I had to face the reality that some things cannot be controlled or purchased or manipulated into submission. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with surprising gentleness, including genuine connection. Something shifted in the atmosphere between them, a tension not entirely sexual, but deeply intimate nonetheless. For a brief moment, Olivia saw past the billionaire, past the demanding boss, to the man beneath the carefully constructed persona. A man who, despite his wealth and power, was as isolated as she sometimes felt herself to be. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. "Because I want you to understand something. When I made my proposition, it wasn't about buying you. It was about finding a way to bridge a gap I didn't know how to cross any other way." Olivia felt tears threatening and blinked them back fiercely. "That doesn't make it right." "No," he agreed, "it probably makes it worse." The honesty in his voice was disarming. Without fully understanding her own motivations, Olivia leaned forward, pressing her lips to his in a kiss that began as tentative, but quickly deepened into something more urgent. Blake responded with a passion that matched her own, his hands moving to her waist, drawing her closer. For a moment, Olivia allowed herself to be swept away by sensation, by the strange chemistry that had been building between them for longer than she cared to admit. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Blake studied her face with an intensity that made her feel utterly exposed. "Stay the night," he said quietly. "Not because you have to, not because of our agreement, but because you want to." The invitation hung between them, transforming the nature of their transaction into something far more complicated. Olivia knew she should refuse, should insist, on maintaining the clear boundaries of their original arrangement. Yet something in his expression, a vulnerability she had never witnessed before, made her hesitate. "I don't know what this is," she admitted. "Neither do I," Blake replied with unexpected candor. "But perhaps that's the point." As dawn began to lighten the sky outside the penthouse windows, Olivia lay awake. Beside Blake's sleeping form, her mind a tumult of conflicting emotions. What had begun as a cold business transaction had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, a connection that defied the careful categories she had placed him in. Olivia slipped out of Blake's penthouse before he awoke, leaving nothing behind but a handwritten note on the marble nightstand. "Thank you for paying my debts, but some things money can never buy." The elegant simplicity of her words belied the storm of emotions she felt as she rode the elevator down to the lobby, the morning sun casting long shadows across the polished floor. In the following days, Olivia threw herself into preparations for her mother's treatment, arranging for the best care team and comfortable accommodations at the prestigious New York Presbyterian Hospital. She took a week of personal leave from Harrington Industries, citing family medical reasons, technically true, though the absence also gave her space to process what had happened with Blake. "You're avoiding talking about it," Rachel observed. "Over coffee in the hospital cafeteria, 3 days after the night at the penthouse. They had just finished meeting with the specialists who would be overseeing her mother's experimental treatment." "There's nothing to talk about," Olivia insisted, stirring her coffee with unnecessary vigor. "It was a transaction, exactly as agreed. Now my mother has a fighting chance and I can move forward." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "If it was just a transaction, why are you hiding in this hospital instead of going back to work? And why do you look like you haven't slept since it happened?" Olivia sighed, finally meeting her friend's gaze. "Because it wasn't what I expected," she admitted quietly. "He wasn't what I expected." Meaning. He was human. Olivia struggled to find the right words. Vulnerable, even. For a moment I saw past the billionaire facade to the man underneath. And he was. Just as broken as the rest of us. Rachel leaned forward, concern evident in her expression. Liv, please tell me you're not developing feelings for him. That's exactly how men like that operate. They make you feel special, like you've seen a side of them no one else has. It's not that simple. It is that simple. He paid you for sex, Olivia. No amount of vulnerability afterward changes that fundamental dynamic. The harsh truth of Rachel's words stung, but Olivia couldn't deny their accuracy. Whatever connection she thought she'd felt with Blake that night existed within a fundamentally corrupted framework, one where power and money had defined the terms of their interaction. "You're right," she conceded. "When my leave ends, I'll go back, maintain professional distance, and start looking for another job." But returning to Harrington Industries proved more complicated than Olivia had anticipated. When she walked into the office the following Monday, she found her desk occupied by a young woman she'd never seen before. "Can I help you?" the stranger asked pleasantly. Before Olivia could respond, Blake's voice came from behind her. "Ms. Mitchell, my office, please." She followed him, acutely aware of curious glances from co-workers. Inside his office, Blake closed the door and wheeled himself behind his desk, his expression unreadable. "I hope your mother's treatment is proceeding well," he said formally. "Yes, thank you. The doctors are optimistic." Olivia remained standing, arms crossed defensively. "Who's at my desk?" "Amanda Harding, your temporary replacement. I assumed you'd need more time off than the week you requested." "That's not your decision to make." "No," Blake agreed, but it seemed the considerate option under the circumstances. His eyes met hers, searching for something. "I've arranged for you to take a paid leave of absence for as long as your mother's treatment requires. Your position will be waiting when you're ready to return." Olivia felt off balance. This wasn't the reaction she had expected. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do," he replied simply, "and because you're the best executive assistant I've ever had. It would be poor business practice to lose you over something as manageable as a temporary family situation. Is that all this is to you? A business decision?" The words escaped before she could stop them. Blake's expression hardened slightly. "Or would you prefer I frame it as something else? Something more personal, perhaps?" He wheeled himself to the window, his back to her. "I thought maintaining professional boundaries would be your preference." The tension between them was palpable, charged with unspoken emotions and complicated by the power dynamics that had always defined their relationship. "What happened that night," Olivia began, "was between Blake and Olivia," he interrupted, turning back to face her. "Not between Mr. Harrington and Ms. Mitchell. I can compartmentalize if you can." "Can you? Really?" she challenged. "Because I'm finding it surprisingly difficult." A hint of vulnerability flickered across his features before his professional mask settled back into place. "What would you suggest, then? That I recuse myself from managing your employment? That would only fuel office gossip and potentially damage your professional reputation." He was right, of course. The corporate world was unforgiving, particularly to women who became involved with their superiors. Any hint of impropriety could follow her for years, regardless of her qualifications or work ethic. "Fine," she finally said. "I appreciate the leave of absence. I'll keep you updated on when I plan to return." As she turned to leave, Blake called after her, "Olivia." The sound of her first name on his lips made her pause, hand on the doorknob. "The gala this weekend. The invitation still stands. The Montgomery Foundation would value your perspective on their community outreach programs." The pretense was thin, but she appreciated the effort at normalcy. "I'll consider it," she replied without turning around, then left the office with as much dignity as she could muster. Outside, she passed Amanda's desk, her desk, with a brief nod. The young woman smiled sympathetically, clearly sensing the tension but professional enough not to comment. Rachel was waiting at their usual coffee shop near the office, eager to hear how Olivia's return had gone. When Olivia explained Blake's offer of extended leave, her friend looked skeptical. "That's surprisingly decent of him. Or it's manipulation." "I don't think it's manipulation," Olivia admitted. "At least, not entirely. I think he's genuinely trying to do the right thing in his own complicated way." "And the gala invitation?" "Professional courtesy. The Montgomery Foundation does important work." Rachel gave her a knowing look. "Uh-huh. And you're going to accept because I refuse to hide like I've done something wrong. My mother's treatment is starting next week. I can attend one charity event before then without compromising her care. The truth, which Olivia wasn't ready to admit even to herself, was that she wanted to see Blake again, to test her own reaction to him in a public setting, where the boundaries were clearer and the stakes less intimate. The night of the gala arrived, bringing with it an unexpected nervousness as Olivia prepared in her apartment. She chose a deep emerald gown that highlighted her eyes and projected confidence, armor for the evening ahead. Rachel had begged, off attending, claiming a work emergency, but really giving Olivia space to navigate this complex situation on her own. The Montgomery Foundation had spared no expense, transforming the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel into an ethereal garden, with cascading floral arrangements and subtle lighting that cast a warm glow over the assembled guests. New York's elite circulated, with practiced ease, champagne glasses in hand as they discussed business ventures and charitable contributions with equal enthusiasm. Olivia spotted Blake immediately upon entering, his commanding presence drawing attention, despite being seated in his wheelchair. He was deep in conversation with an older couple, his expression animated in a way she rarely saw at the office. When he looked up and saw her, something shifted in his features, a softening around the eyes quickly masked but unmistakable to someone who had studied him as closely as she had over the years. With a deep breath, she approached the group, professional smile firmly in place. "Good evening, Mr. Harrington." "Ms. Mitchell," he replied with formal correctness, then gestured to the couple beside him. "Allow me to introduce Senator and Mrs. Hammond. They're major supporters of the Montgomery Foundation's educational initiatives." The introductions continued smoothly, and Olivia soon found herself engaged in surprisingly meaningful discussions about educational access and community development, topics she cared about deeply but rarely had occasion to address in her professional life. Throughout the evening, Blake kept a respectful distance, introducing her to influential people, but never hovering or asserting ownership in the way she had halfway feared he might. As the orchestra began playing a waltz, the dance floor filled with couples. Olivia stood at its edge, watching the elegant movements with appreciation when she felt Blake's presence beside her. "You've impressed the senator," he said quietly. "He mentioned you'd have a promising future in policy advocacy if you ever tire of corporate work." "I'm just passionate about educational equity," she replied. "My mother was a teacher in the public school system for 30 years. I grew up understanding the challenges." Blake nodded, his eyes thoughtful, another piece of the Olivia Mitchell puzzle. He paused, then added, "You look beautiful tonight. Green suits you." The compliment, delivered without expectation or agenda, brought a warmth to her cheeks. "Thank you." They stood in companionable silence, watching the dancers. Then Blake said something that caught her completely off guard. "I've missed you this week. The office runs efficiently with Amanda, but it's not the same." Before Olivia could formulate a response, they were interrupted by the Foundation's director, eager to discuss a potential new partnership with Harrington Industries. By the time the conversation concluded, the moment had passed, and Olivia felt both relieved and disappointed. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began departing, Olivia found herself on the terrace, enjoying a moment of solitude beneath the stars. The city spread before her, its lights competing with the night sky. A different view from Blake's penthouse, but reminiscent enough to bring back memories of their night together. Escaping the crowd, Blake's voice interrupted her thoughts as he wheeled onto the terrace. "Just needed some fresh air," she replied, turning to face him. "It's been an intense few weeks." Indeed. He moved beside her at the balustrade, looking out over the city. "Your mother's treatment begins Monday." "Yes, the doctors are cautiously optimistic." "I'm glad." His sincerity was evident. After a moment's hesitation, he added, "About what happened between us." "Please," Olivia interrupted, "we don't need to rehash it." "I disagree." Blake's voice was gentle but firm. "What I did, propositioning you that way, was unconscionable. The power imbalance alone made it inappropriate, regardless of your financial situation. The unexpected apology left her momentarily speechless. Of all the scenarios she had imagined for this evening, Blake Harrington acknowledging his ethical lapse had not been among them. "Why are you saying this now?" she finally asked. "Because I've had time to reflect on my actions and their implications." He turned his wheelchair to face her directly. "And because that night changed something for me. Seeing you leave in the morning, reading your note, I realized I had reduced something profound to a transaction, and in doing so I'd missed what was truly valuable." The raw honesty in his voice shook her. "Blake, you don't have to say anything," he continued. "I just needed you to know that I recognize the mistake I made. Whatever happens going forward, whether you return to Harrington Industries or pursue other opportunities, that acknowledgement seemed important." Olivia studied his face, searching for signs of manipulation, but finding only genuine regret mingled with something warmer, more hopeful. The man before her seemed miles removed from the cold, calculating figure who had built an empire on ruthless efficiency. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "You don't need to say anything tonight." Blake reached out hesitantly, then seemed to think better of it and withdrew his hand. "Take the time you need with your mother. My offer of extended leave stands with no strings attached." As he turned to leave, Olivia surprised herself by reaching out to touch his shoulder. "Thank you. For tonight. For the leave. For giving my mother a chance." The words felt inadequate, but they were all she had to offer in that moment. Blake covered her hand with his briefly, the touch sending an unexpected current between them. "Good night, Olivia." She watched him navigate back through the diminishing crowd, commanding respect despite his physical limitation, and felt something shift inside her, a recognition that the path forward might be more complicated than she had imagined. The waiting room of New York Presbyterian's Advanced Treatment Wing was designed to soothe anxious families. Soft lighting, comfortable furniture, calming artwork on the walls. None of it helped ease Olivia's tension as she waited for news about her mother's first week of treatment. The experimental protocol was rigorous and demanding, with side effects that could sometimes be as frightening as the disease itself. "Ms. Mitchell," a nurse appeared at the doorway. "Your mother is asking for you." Olivia followed the nurse, through corridors that had become familiar over the past weeks. When she entered her mother's room, she was relieved to see her sitting up in bed, tired but alert, a small smile on her face. "The doctor says the initial results are promising," her mother said, reaching for Olivia's hand. "My numbers are already showing improvement." "That's wonderful," Olivia replied, blinking back tears of relief. She settled into the chair beside the bed, prepared to spend the afternoon keeping her mother company during her treatment. They talked about ordinary things, neighbors from back home who had sent cards, a new book her mother was reading, the unseasonably warm weather. Neither mentioned the astronomical cost of the treatment or how it had been funded. That conversation remained carefully avoided, a tacit agreement between them. As afternoon faded into evening, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text message. Blake's name appeared on the screen. "Just checking in. Hope treatment is proceeding well." She stared at the message, unsure how to respond. In the 3 weeks since the gala, they had maintained minimal contact, professional courtesy texts, nothing more. Yet each message carried an undercurrent of something deeper, something neither of them seemed ready to name. "Who's that?" her mother asked, noticing her distraction. "Just my boss," Olivia replied, tucking the phone away. Her mother raised an eyebrow. "The same boss who approved your indefinite leave of absence with full pay. That seems unusually generous in today's corporate climate," Olivia sighed. Her mother had always been perceptive. "It's complicated." Relationships usually are. Her mother's gentle tone held no judgment, especially when they cross boundaries that once seemed fixed. "There's no relationship," Olivia protested weakly. Her mother smiled. "There's always a relationship, sweetheart. The question is what kind you're building." She patted Olivia's hand. "I've watched you put your life on hold for years, first for your education, then for your career, and now for me. At some point, You need to consider your own happiness. I am happy when you're well, and I'm grateful for your devotion, but that's not what I'm talking about, and you know it." Her mother's expression grew serious. "Life is too short and too precious to let fear make our choices for us." The words lingered in Olivia's mind long after she left the hospital. As she walked through the city streets, she found herself drawn not toward her apartment, but in the direction of Harrington Industries. The imposing glass tower reflected the evening sky, a monument to ambition and achievement. On impulse, she texted Blake, "Are you still at the office?" His reply came almost immediately. "Yes, 47th floor." 20 minutes later, she stepped out of the elevator into the executive suite, now darkened except for the light spilling from Blake's office at the end of the corridor. When she reached his doorway, she found him alone, surrounded by holographic projections of financial data, his focus intense as he manipulated figures with practiced gestures. He looked up, surprise registering briefly before he smiled. "Olivia, this is unexpected." "I was in the neighborhood," she said, then laughed at the obvious lie. "Actually, that's not true. I walked here deliberately after leaving the hospital." "And how is your mother?" "Responding well to treatment. The doctors are cautiously optimistic." She moved further into the office, taking a seat across from his desk. "Thank you for asking and for checking in these past weeks." Blake dismissed the holographic displays with a wave, giving her his full attention. "I meant what I said at the gala. No strings attached to your leave or my concern." The sincerity in his voice gave her courage. "I've been thinking about what happened between us. Not just that night, but everything leading up to it and since. And I don't know how to reconcile it all." Olivia leaned forward, struggling to articulate feelings she was only beginning to understand. "What you did, offering money in exchange for intimacy, crossed a line that should never be crossed. It was wrong on multiple levels." Blake nodded, accepting the criticism without defense. "Yes, it was. But what happened that night wasn't what either of us expected." She met his gaze directly. "Was it?" "No," he admitted quietly. "It wasn't. I came here tonight because I need to understand something. That vulnerability you showed me, was it real? Or was it a calculated move to get what you wanted?" The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Blake wheeled himself from behind the desk to sit directly before her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes. "It was real," he said finally. "More real than anything I've allowed myself to feel in years. Since the accident, I've kept people at a distance, convinced that showing weakness would undermine everything I've built." He gestured toward the darkened office, the empire beyond the windows. "I constructed this perfect, controlled world where nothing could touch me, because nothing was allowed close enough. Until me. Until you." Blake's expression softened. "You've always seen through my defenses, even before that night. It's why I trusted you professionally from the beginning, and why I made the devastating mistake of thinking I could control whatever was developing between us by reducing it to a transaction." The raw honesty of his confession touched something deep within Olivia, a recognition of the courage it took for a man like Blake Harrington to admit such vulnerability. "I've spent weeks trying to hate you," she confessed. "It would be so much simpler if I could." "But you don't?" "No, and that terrifies me." Olivia stood, moving to the window to collect her thoughts. The city spread before her, millions of lives intersecting in countless ways, each person carrying their own complicated truths. "The power dynamic between us hasn't changed. You're still one of the most influential men in New York, and I'm still your employee on leave, but your employee nonetheless." "That could change," Blake suggested carefully, "if you wanted it to." Olivia turned back to face him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there are other opportunities where your talents would be valued. The Montgomery Foundation was serious about their interest in you. Senator Hammond mentioned board positions opening on several educational initiatives." Blake moved closer, his expression earnest. "You wouldn't have to choose between your career and whatever might develop between us. The possibility hung between them, tantalizing but frightening in its implications. And if nothing develops? If we try and discover there's nothing sustainable beyond this strange attraction and shared moment of vulnerability, then you'd still have a position suited to your abilities and passions, with no connection to me or my influence. Blake reached for her hand, his touch gentle but electric. I'm not asking for promises, Olivia, just a chance to explore what might be possible when money and power aren't the defining factors of our relationship. Before she could respond, her phone rang, the hospital's number flashing on the screen. With a surge of panic, she answered immediately. Ms. Mitchell, this is Dr. Stevens. I wanted to let you know personally that your mother had a strong reaction to today's treatment. She's stabilized now, but I thought you should be aware. I'll be right there, Olivia said, already gathering her purse. Blake read the concern on her face. What's happened? My mother had a reaction to the treatment. She's stable, but I need to go. I'll take you, he said instantly, already moving toward the door. My car is downstairs. It will be faster than trying to find a taxi at this hour. The offer was practical, with no ulterior motive she could detect. After a moment's hesitation, Olivia nodded. Thank you. The journey to the hospital passed in tense silence, Olivia's thoughts entirely focused on her mother. Blake respected her concern, asking no questions and offering no platitudes, simply being present in a way that provided unexpected comfort. At the hospital, he surprised her by accompanying her inside. When she glanced at him questioningly, he said simply, I'll wait in the lobby. You shouldn't be alone tonight, regardless of what happens upstairs. The gesture moved her more than she expected. Thank you, she said quietly, then hurried to the elevators. Hours later, after the doctors had explained the reaction and adjusted her mother's treatment plan, Olivia returned to the lobby, emotionally and physically exhausted. She half expected Blake to have left, sending his driver back for her later. Instead, she found him in conversation with a young boy in a wheelchair, both deeply engaged in what appeared to be an impromptu chess lesson using a travel set Blake had produced from somewhere. Check, the boy said triumphantly, moving his bishop. Blake studied the board with exaggerated concentration, then nodded solemnly. Well played. I don't think I can escape that one. The boy beamed, then noticed Olivia approaching. Is that your girlfriend? He asked Blake, with the directness only children can manage. Blake looked up, his expression softening when he saw her. That's a complicated question, he replied honestly. But she's definitely someone very important to me. The boy's mother appeared, apologizing for the interruption, before whisking her son away to his treatment. Blake packed away the chess set, then looked up at Olivia. How is she? Stable. They've adjusted her medication to prevent further reactions. Olivia sank into the chair beside him, suddenly overwhelmed by the events of the day. The doctor says she should be able to continue the treatment with closer monitoring. That's good news, Blake said softly. You look exhausted. Can I take you home? The question was simple, with no hidden agenda. In that moment, Olivia recognized something she had been fighting for weeks, the possibility that what had begun in such problematic circumstances might evolve into something genuine and meaningful. Yes, she answered, but not yet. I think we should talk first. They found a quiet corner of the hospital cafe, nearly empty at this late hour. Over cups of mediocre coffee, they began the difficult work of reimagining what might exist between them outside the boundaries of employer and employee, benefactor and recipient. I can't pretend the past didn't happen, Olivia said frankly. Your proposition, my acceptance, those choices will always be part of our story. I know, Blake acknowledged, and I wouldn't ask you to forget it. But I do believe people can grow and relationships can evolve beyond their origins. Based on what? Your vast experience with meaningful personal connections? The question held no malice, only genuine curiosity. Based on what I've learned from you, he replied with unexpected humility. About strength that doesn't require domination, about vulnerability as courage rather than weakness. Olivia studied him, seeing beyond the powerful businessman to the man who had revealed himself in glimpses and moments, playing chess with a sick child, acknowledging his mistakes without excuses, waiting hours in an uncomfortable hospital chair simply so she wouldn't be alone. "I'm not ready to make any definitive decisions tonight," she finally said, "about us, about my career, about any of it. But I am willing to explore the possibilities, slowly, carefully, with clear boundaries." The smile that transformed Blake's face made him look younger, lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. "That's more than I had any right to hope for." As promised, Blake's driver took her home, with Blake accompanying her to ensure she arrived safely. At her door, he made no attempt to come inside, simply saying goodnight with a gentle squeeze of her hand. In the weeks that followed, as her mother's condition gradually improved under the adjusted treatment protocol, Olivia and Blake began a careful dance of rediscovery. Their relationship evolved through long conversations over dinner, visits to art galleries, and quiet evenings discussing books and ideas, a courtship conducted with deliberate intention and mutual respect. 3. Months after her mother completed the initial phase of treatment, with promising results that offered real hope for recovery, Olivia made two significant decisions. She accepted a position as Director of Community Outreach for the Montgomery Foundation, and she agreed to accompany Blake on a weekend trip to his lake house in the Adirondacks. Away from the city, surrounded by the serenity of nature, they found new dimensions to their connection. Blake revealed hidden aspects of himself, a love of astronomy, surprising skill at cooking, a dry sense of humor that emerged when he felt truly comfortable. Olivia shared dreams she had set aside for practical concerns, passions that had been dormant during years of single-minded career focus. On their final morning at the lake, as mist rose from the water and birds called to each other in the surrounding forest, Blake presented Olivia with a small wooden box. "This isn't what you might think," he said as she hesitated to open it. "We're not there yet, and I respect that." Inside, she found not a ring, but a delicate silver key. "What's this for?" "It's symbolic more than practical," Blake explained. "A key to possibilities, to a future we might build together if that's what you choose, at your pace, on your terms." The thoughtfulness of the gesture brought tears to her eyes. "I never imagined we could get here," she admitted, "from where we started." "Neither did I." Blake took her hand, his expression serious. "Hati, I've spent my life building things, companies, buildings, financial empires, but nothing has ever been as important to me as building this with you, something real and enduring, founded on mutual respect rather than power or transaction." Olivia looked out at the mist-covered lake, then back at the man beside her. Complex, flawed, but genuinely striving to be worthy of the second chance she had given him. The journey that had brought them to this moment had been neither simple nor straightforward, with origins she could never have anticipated and challenges they were still learning to navigate. "I think," she said carefully, "that the best foundations are often built on the sites of previous failures. The ground is tested. You know where the weaknesses lie." Blake smiled, understanding her meaning. "And with that knowledge, you can build something stronger than before." "Exactly." Olivia closed, her hand around the key, a tangible symbol of possibilities yet to be explored. "I'm not making any promises beyond today, but I am choosing to believe that what we're building might be worth all the complications." "That's enough for me," Blake replied, his voice rough with emotion. "Today is all anyone can truly promise, anyway." As the sun burned away the morning mist, revealing the beauty of the landscape in all its clarity, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The path that had led her here had been unexpected and often painful, but standing beside a man who had learned through love to value more than money and power, she found herself grateful for every step of the journey. The key in her hand represented not just a possible future with Blake, but a truth she had discovered through their complicated relationship, that human connection, with all its messiness and vulnerability, was the one thing of true value in a world too often defined by transactions and appearances. And that genuine love, whether it lasted a lifetime or only this perfect moment, was the one thing money could never buy. Fim de Historia. Dear listeners, we hope that Olivia and Blake's journey of redemption and discovery has touched your hearts. Every relationship faces challenges, but few begin with the complexities these two had to overcome. Their story reminds us that genuine connection can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances when we're brave enough to look beyond appearances and transactions to see the person beneath. For more captivating stories that explore the intricate dance of power, vulnerability, and authentic love, subscribe to our channel by clicking the button to your left. If this story moved you, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. What decision would you have made in Olivia's position? Every day we bring you unique narratives that delve into the complexities of human connection. Don't